Ukraine and Russia have exchanged the bodies of soldiers killed during their more than 3-year war. The swap's the result of ongoing negotiations between the two sides held in Turkey. The bodies were transported in refrigerated trucks, with the exchange itself facilitated by the Red Cross. Ukraine says it received more than 1,200 bodies and will begin the process of identifying them. Russia says it received 27 and is planning to exchange severely wounded prisoners of war. Our correspondent Mariel Müller in eastern Ukraine told me more.
Well, there was a handover of 1,212, the bodies of 102,212 soldiers who, according to Ukrainian authorities, had been killed while fighting in Ukraine's regions of Kharkiv, Kherson, Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhia, and also in the Russian region of Kursk during Ukraine's incursion there. And the Ukrainian authorities said now they will start the process of identifying these bodies, and they will do that as soon as possible. And this handover of bodies was part of an agreement that was reached in Istanbul earlier this month during direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. And the other part, as you mentioned, is the prisoner swap that has been going on since Monday and throughout of yesterday. 1,200 prisoners of war are set to be exchanged. It's unclear how many have been released so far or have been exchanged so far to not endanger this process, but it will be, once completed, the biggest prisoner swap since the start of the war. That's according to both sides.
Meanwhile, Russia has fired record numbers of drones and missiles at Ukraine in recent weeks, and even earlier today there were fresh Russian strikes on Kharkiv. Just bring us up to date, please.
Yeah, earlier this morning, Russian forces launched another massive drone assault across the country, and the hardest hit area was the city of Kharkiv in the northeast of the country, and that's where 17 drones attacked 2 residential districts, hitting apartment blocks, public transportation, playgrounds even. 3 people died, according to Ukrainian authorities, and 64 were wounded. Emergency workers have been on these sites throughout the night, desperately trying to rescue residents who were stuck in these buildings, trying to extinguish the fires, and of course also to restore electricity and water services. And this has just been the latest in a string of recent attacks from Russia. It has upscaled the pace and also the number of drones that it attacks. Just a few days ago, with a record-breaking 500 drones that were launched and attacked across of Ukraine. So we're seeing really an escalation in this war again.
OK, thank you for that, Mariel. DW correspondent Mariel Müller in eastern Ukraine. Well, Arseniy Yatsenyuk was Prime Minister of Ukraine from 2014 to 2016. I asked for his thoughts on today's exchange of the remains of dead soldiers.
Well, we mourn for those who had been dead and for those who had been killed by Russians, and we pray for their families. And the thing is that we urge Russia to execute a prisoner swap, but Russia is not eager to stick to the international obligations. They actually don't care about any international law. They believe that the only international law they can stick to is the law of the force, or the law of strength.
Despite that, these prisoner exchanges have been the only concrete outcome from the last set of direct talks between the two sides in Turkey. President Zelensky has said that further talks are pointless without President Putin's direct involvement. Is that also your assessment?
I have different perspectives. So first of all, Putin doesn't want peace, and it's crystal clear. So he's dragging his feet. So he wants to outcheat, to outplay the Western world, Ukraine, and he actually wants to conquer Ukraine and then to move further and actually to try to attack the European Union. So I believe what is needed right now is not Putin at the negotiating table. We need to have President Trump back on track and the U.S. administration. As of now, the U.S. administration is reluctant to impose an additional sanctions, and there is no clear-cut signs that the U.S. administration is ready to provide any kind of additional military support for Ukraine. And that's what is needed. And you feel just indicated about the air defense system in Ukraine. I want to be very clear. It is dwindling. So we are running low on our stockpiles. Have you seen what's happened in the last few days? Russians even started to hit the cathedral. This is the biggest, I would say, iconic church of Ukraine in Kiev. So they conduct combined aerial attacks. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. So we urgently need an additional air defense system. And I'm very upset with the US decision to redirect 20,000 missiles that have been already directed for Ukraine's support to another places.
Right. Okay. So Ukraine's ability to defend itself dwindling. We have a United States that seems less and less inclined to take an active role in this fight. How then do you change the mind of President Donald Trump?
Well, I believe that there is a majority in the U.S. House and in the U.S. Congress. Look, the bill that has been introduced by Lindsey Graham, actually co-sponsored by 82 senators in the U.S. Senate. So it is a bipartisan decision to impose an additional severe and harsh sanctions on those who purchase Russian oil. So the White House and the Oval Office is undecided in terms whether to support the bill or to reject the bill. But the thing is that there is a political will inside the U.S. political establishment to help Ukraine. Look at the polls. Americans, more than 60% of Americans still support Ukraine. So it plays directly into the hands of Trump. If he wants to retain the power, if he wants to win midterms, which are expected to be in a year and a half, so it's in his interests, in his political interests, to support Ukraine. And the fact is that supporting Ukraine, he actually supports his national security interests.
Okay.
That's the Ukrainian military who demolished Russian land forces. So I still believe that we can have Americans back on track.
Well, that's former Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, speaking to me a little earlier.